Thank everyone for being here. It was really interesting yesterday when I was walking around to see all the people that I read about and all the companies that I read about all in one place, and to be able to walk around and see what people are doing. And it's really inspiring. And unfortunately, when I get inspired, I start sending lots of emails home. And people know that when I come home on Thursday, there's lots of meetings and more work to do, which is the exciting part of my job. MakerBot is one of the most exciting companies that I've worked for, although I still have to say that the company that I founded and grew and sold is still the most exciting company that I've worked for. I love working in the startup environment. I love working for a startup company. I love working for an entrepreneurial-minded company. And I love being a part of an innovation cycle. I had a company called Net Damon's Associates, which was a TCP/IP-based networking company. We provided outsourced network administration support long before anyone was doing it. Trust me, it wasn't a ho-hum concept. It was a holy cow, you could do that concept. And I started it before Al Gore invented the internet. And when Al Gore invented the internet, I remember a bunch of us going like, what is this about? We've been doing this for years. We've been doing this forever. You know, we all know about flame on, flame off. I spend half my time on the internet, managing people who are coming in through the internet and doing things that they shouldn't do. But then Al Gore came along and started talking about the internet. He socialized the concept of it. And there was an explosion of innovation. Yeah, there was a technology that existed before, but new market conditions existed, and new needs and requirements existed, and innovation took place on a technology that we all knew and loved, and we created the internet. That was an incredible ride. It was incredible to be part of a big explosion, a big innovation cycle. And it's really interesting to me that I accidentally fell into another innovation cycle. Remember the first day that I went to meet with Bree to tell him that I was looking for a job and explain to him why he should talk to me. It was the first time I'd seen a 3D printer, and I, like many people, had thought about what a 3D printer would be like. Like, 3D printer, how do you print things? How do you print stuff? Is it like some origami machine? Is it something that puts paper together? We find out now that M-Core does put paper together and make beautiful things. But I really had no idea, and I walked into MakerBot. I walked into the Bot Cave, which was one of the coolest factories I've ever been in. And I saw this 3D printer working, and it's like a science fiction movie to me. It changed my life. It changed the way I thought about things. It changed the way that that my mind worked. And when I started thinking about doing something, I instead thought about how you can make it. Could you make it? Should you make it? Should you buy it? What should you do? Could someone make it for me? And it completely changed my thought process. And that's what I loved about MakerBot. So I'll roll back a little bit. I'm going to be a little all over the place here because that's a little bit how I am, and I just had 2 big coffees, which is awesome. I started a technology company in 1991. I grew that up. I sold it in 1999. The company I sold it to was a roll-up. That means that they bought lots of companies and did something with them. I was the 15th acquisition and doubled the size of that company. After that acquisition, in the next door, while they were closing my deal, in the next door was the company that they were buying that changed the company's name, that also doubled the size of the company, and that was a company called Interliant. About 4 weeks later, I closed my deal, went and met with the Interliant people, and then went into this huge room where I met with analysts, because unbeknownst to me, during the time of the deal, we were also preparing to go public. About, I don't know, 4, 6, 8 weeks later, we took the company public. And we were the first ASP, application service provider. We had one big competitor, US Internetworking. Those are 2 companies that you don't know about unless you're old like me, and a concept that you may not know about as well. Both of the companies grew up hugely. Interliant was a massive public company. And I rode that up and rode that down, and left the company to work for SoftBank as an entrepreneur in residence before it went bankrupt. It was an incredible ride. And what was interesting to me, looking back on that, is that I left that company in 2000 maybe, and I re-entered the workforce in 2011 after owning 2 independent bookstores and a cafe for almost 10 years in Greenwich, Connecticut. And what an ASP was really creating software as a service. And I couldn't believe it that when I came back into the market, I was the SVP of strategy, so I defined a lot of concepts behind what software as a service was. It was incredible to me that coming back into it, that software as a service is still so underdeveloped, still something that really needs a lot of work, that has a huge growth path, a lot of adoption, a lot of early adopters still needing to grow, still needing to mature, so many years later. And that's what's going on in the industry that we're in today. Stratus has been making 3D printers for over 25 years. 25 years, that's a long time. That's older than my oldest kid. That's half my age. And we're talking about the next industrial revolution. We're talking about early adopters. We're talking about something new with a technology that's that old. But that's where we're at. These are the days, these are those early days. These are the days when Al Gore said, I invented the internet, when we all went, are you kidding me? Because these are the days. And that's what's so interesting to me being in the market today. I love being here to see so many people bringing their products to market, so many people bringing solutions to market, so many people looking at what products and solutions they need to bring in to disrupt their companies, to disrupt their manufacturing processes, to disrupt their design process, to do things differently, to be a part of the innovation cycle, and to be a part of the next industrial revolution. And each person here, each company here is so necessary for us to grow the market beyond early adopter, to grow the adoption cycle, to bring accessibility to people, to make sure that everyone who wants to can design in a different way and has a choice of how to do that, that has an ecosystem of how to do that, that has software, that has solutions, that has hardware. Each piece of the puzzle is here, and we need more of it. So that's what I love about being in an entrepreneurial company. I love that there are people here that we compete with. I love that there are people here who criticize us. And I love that there are people here who love what we do. Because this is necessary. This is a part of the entrepreneurial ecosystem that's going to grow this out of the early adopter market and make 3D printing for the world mainstream. So how did I get here? I told you I started my company. I left that company. I worked for SoftBank. I worked for SoftBank as an entrepreneur in residence, and that company moved to be Mobius Venture. It was a venture capital company. I worked for Brad Feld. Brad Feld is a longtime friend of mine. I've known him since we both had startup companies in the Boston area. We both say the Boston area, even though both of us acknowledge that neither of us were working in Boston. I worked in Woburn. He worked in Cambridge, which is not Boston, but we were in the Boston area. And I was friends with Brad before he sold his first company. And then Brad sold his company and became a venture capitalist. He became an angel investor, and he invested in my company. And then I left there to work for him as an entrepreneur in residence. And my job was to start a new company that they might want to invest in. So I bought an independent bookstore. And they said, sorry, but we're not going to invest in that. I bought an independent bookstore because on 9/11, everyone who I knew and cared about was in an airplane or away from their house. Away from their house in New York City, or in an airplane going to New York City. My neighbor across the street died. Many people in Greenwich, Connecticut died. And it was a very transitional moment for me. And I looked at my kids and I looked at my family and I said, I need to do something different and I need to get off this bus. So I spent 10 years in Old Greenwich, Connecticut, running 2 really cool bookstores, had a coffee shop. I know how to make a mean espresso if you need one. And after 12 years in that world, I needed to make a change and go on to do something else. When I decided to buy the bookstore, I remember saying to Brad, like, this is sort of risky, buying a bookstore. It's a small bookstore. I don't know anything about running a small retail shop. And he said, what's the worst that can happen? Like, worst that could happen would be that it would fail. And he's like, so it would fail, or you close it, you don't like it, you'll go on and you'll do something else in technology. And I said, oh, that sounds easy. You keep reading magazines, you stay current with what you do, no problem. It's really, really, really hard. I have to tell you, doing independent retail is one of the hardest things I've done in my life. Way harder than running a 3D printer company in a lot of ways. So I did that for 10 to 12 years, and I learned a lot about how business works. I learned how important cash is. I learned how important it is to know how financial statements work. I learned how important people are, and I learned how important customers are. And I learned how you can sell by knowing who your customer is and listening to their needs and making sure that what you talk to them about is what they need and want. After running my bookshops, I ran out of money. I don't know if anyone's ever done that, but I ran out of money. I ran out of credit cards. I ran out of life to tolerate that, so I had to go back and start working. And I called another friend of mine and said, I need a job. And she had a really cool company, and I went and was the COO for a medical devices company. And then after a year and a half or so of there, I called my friend Frank Alfano, who happened to be the guy who bought my company. And I said, I'm looking for a new job, and he had just started a roll-up in the solar panel installation business. He said, why don't you come run operations for me? It's sort of messy. We need to get it running. So I said, sounds interesting. Don't know anything about this, but I'll do it. And I went in and I started running operations for this big solar installer. Really cool because we had like 120 construction workers. So I learned all about inventory. I learned all about bombs, not like you've seen, bombs of like massive solar panels and all sorts of copper wire and screws. And I learned about how the solar industry works, and that was really interesting. And that's another market that had a bubble and it crashed. I don't know, in America it was one of the hottest markets. It was a commodities market, and it had an exchange, and it really fell apart. And so I decided to move on from the solar panel company, and that's when I called Brad Feld and I said, please, I need something really interesting and good to do next. What do you think? And he said, you should call my friend Bree. We just invested in this company called MakerBot, and he's got big ideas. So I said, sure, and I went and called Bree. And I live in Greenwich, Connecticut. It's not very far from New York City. I'd never been to Brooklyn, I have to confess. I'd never been to Brooklyn before I went to MakerBot. I remember driving over the Brooklyn Bridge thinking, like, this is probably not going to work. And I went into this place called the Bot Cave, which sort of was like this, only much lower ceilings. Maybe like you sort of had to almost walk like that. An old beer factory, and that was the factory. And I met with Bree, and I was so intrigued with what he was doing. And he told me the story of what he wanted to do. I mean, Bree wanted to change the world. MakerBot was out to change the world. MakerBot was out to bring 3D printers to the rest of the world, to create accessibility, to make sure that no one who wanted to do something like design and create and make and innovate, no one was left without an option. And that's a whole part of the roots of the industry, in the 3D printing industry, in the desktop 3D printing industry, is that exact passion, bringing technology to people, making sure that people are enabled, bringing accessibility to people. And at that time, there were probably about 40 people at MakerBot. And I said, and Bree had massive visions, I mean, really big visions. And I said, I think you probably need some help. And he's like, I've got Adam, I've got Zach, you know, we're all set. And I'm like, really, I'm pretty sure that, that you're going to need some help. You're going to need more than the 3 of you guys to get there. You're going to need more than the 40 people there. And he's like, got it taken care of. And I said, thanks, great to meet you, went home. I said to Brad, I know he needs my help, but he doesn't think he needs my help. And that's thing one in terms of being an entrepreneur in a company. If you want to grow it, I tell people you should ask for help early and often. Don't be shy, don't be ashamed. You're going to learn way more by asking for help early and often and getting it than trying to do it on your own and potentially falling apart. So I kept bugging Bree, and finally Bree's like, fine, come have lunch with me and Adam. I came and had lunch with him and Adam, and we all decided that there was a role that I could play at MakerBot, but he was pretty sure he couldn't afford me. So he said, it's really nice, we'd love to hire you, but we can't, so see you later. I said, that's pretty lame, dude. Like, you've got to at least make me an offer for me to say yes or no to. I'll give you a day, and you can get back to me tomorrow, and we'll talk about it. So the next day he called, he made me an offer for about half of what I made, and I said, that sounds great. If you throw a 3D printer in, you got a deal. And so that's how I came to MakerBot. We had about 40 people then. That was 3 years ago around Thanksgiving. We have roughly 600 people now. When people think about MakerBot, sometimes I worry that they think about this, what we used to be. we used to be in this old beer factory with people, not even at that point, we weren't making assembled machines, we were making kits. All you could hear in the beer factory was plunk, 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 these little, because my office was right behind, it was next to the people making things. It wasn't an office, it was a desk. And you could hear just this click, 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 click. It was a sweet little noise. And I remember the day that I was sitting there and we started making our partially assembled machine, the replicator, and it was not a sweet little noise. It was this bang, bang, banging noise because we were assembling things and putting things together. But that's what people sometimes think about MakerBot. They think about that first company, they think about those first 40 people, they think about where we were then. And today we're 600 people. We are in 3 different locations, 4 when you count MakerBot Europe. We have an office at Metro Tech in Brooklyn. We have a whole floor of a building in Brooklyn. We have a factory. Like, we have a whole factory. You go into the factory and there's multiple floors in the factory. I'm still blown away when I go in there. I walk in and there's a whole first floor where we keep all of our raw goods. And then we ship and receive, like, they're big trucks that come and take things out of there. And then you go up the next floor, and there are lines. There are actual assembly lines with cell leaders and people working on them. And there's scanners, and there's technology, and there are people doing QA, and there's people doing testing. And then you go up another floor, and that's where our R&D labs are. There are 3 floors. There are 4 floors, because on the 4th floor, that's where we store stored inventory. It still blows my mind. We have a factory. And it's so incredible. One of the things that's most inspiring to me is that we are in Brooklyn, New York, and we have our company in Brooklyn, New York, and we are engineering and doing R&D and manufacturing 3D printers. And it's awesome. It's an awesome experience, and it inspires us every day. So what makes MakerBot grow? How do you go from 40 to 600 people? That's a lot. That's a lot of people in 3 years. I mean, I don't know everyone's name anymore. Who would know anyone's name when you've got 600 people? Sometimes I'm in the elevator and I'm like, is this person someone who works at MakerBot? I don't know. They've got jeans on, so it's most likely that they are because no one else in the building wears jeans. It looks like they've got a t-shirt. That guy's got a skateboard. Pretty sure he works for us. But I don't know who they are. And that's a sad part of growing to that stage. So the way that we've grown to that point is that we've hired great people. One of the first things that I did was that I came in and I said to Bree, we really need to hire a management team. There's just no way we're going to do this on our own. There's just no way that you're going to hire people that you need to get to be where you want to be in the industry with just you, with just Adam, with just Zach. People are going to leave. People are going to leave. They're young people here. The average age of the people at MakerBot is 27. Gosh, I hope they come and learn and grow and move on and go start another company. Go find the next thing to do, and I hope that they take what they learn and go learn it somewhere else and then bring it back and do something more at MakerBot, because that's my mission, to make sure that people are learning and growing within MakerBot and going out into the world and doing other great things. But I said, we can't do this on our own. It's exhausting, trust me, I've done it. And I'm old, I'm older than you. You've got a little girl, but I've got 2 boys, and it's tiring, so you've got to hire a management team. So the first thing that we did was we hired a management team. A bigger management team than you would hire for 40 people, because I knew that we were going to grow a lot. And then I really looked at who MakerBot was. What was important to MakerBot? What are our values? What do we want? I want people who want to learn and grow. I want people who want to be passionate about what they're doing. I want people who want to take technology out to the rest of the world. I want people who want to use 3D printers, who want to think about 3D printing, and who want to bring accessibility out so that everyone can be an innovator. I want people to innovate. And so when we looked at who we were, we made sure that every person that came through the door fit that mold. That's what we were looking for. We wanted to make sure that we had a specific type of person. And then we put in place systems so that we knew that we were going to grow. If you're going to grow fast, there's going to be change. How many people here like change? Right? Most people get a little grumpy about change. Whether it's good change or bad change, it's change, right? It's something different. I like to say different is just different. Different isn't bad, it isn't good, but different is different. And different makes people uncomfortable. So when you're going to grow at the rate that we are, there's going to be change. There are going to be people who are super happy. There are going to be people who are super grumpy. There are going to be people who can't stretch all the way as we grow. And so what we did was make sure that we put in place systems so that we were always hiring based on our values, always making sure that we had people who were a part of what MakerBot was doing. And that's how we grew from 40 to 600 people. It was those first probably 15 hires that we made. And then a year later I said, you know, the next thing that we need to do is we need to hire the next level management team. Because we're not all going to be here all the time. You've got to plan for when you get hit by a bus. That's one of my favorite lines. Like, do you have process? Have you written down how you do this? It's all in your head. What happens tomorrow when you walk out in the street and you get hit by a bus? We're sort of screwed. So you got to hire someone to be the next person. You've got to make sure that there's process. You've got to make sure that this is a functioning company. So it's really interesting to take something from that size to the size that we're at and go through. There are massive inflection points that we've gone through. It's really interesting to get to an inflection point and realize that all the systems that you had in place to take you to the size that you're at overnight sometimes can break because you've just hit the inflection point. So one of my jobs has been to try to look forward, work with the management team, and identify where they're going to be inflection points so that we can put in place process and procedure and people in advance so that the inflection point doesn't hurt as much. So it doesn't feel like you just hit a speed bump going 100 miles per hour. Maybe you slow down to 20 at least. So we have an awesome management team. We have awesome people. And we have values, and we really made sure that when we talk about MakerBot, every product that we make, we start with talking about how are we going to brand this? What does this mean to people? What are we going to talk about with the product? What are we going to talk about with MakerBot? So we talk about the values of our product. We talk about who our customers are. We talk about what we think their needs are. And we talk about the fact that we're going to bring a product out into the market based on what we think our customers' needs are, and then find out what they are and iterate the hell out of it so that we get the best product in the end, that our customers get what they need out of it, even if they're frustrated at first, because it's frustrating to have someone assume, based on what they've heard and based on what they think you do, here's a product that we think that you need. It's frustrating to be at that stage, but it's really awesome when you're there 6 months, 9 months, 10 months later, when we've heard what you need and we've iterated so that we start to make the product better. That's one of the roots of MakerBot, that I think that the sexier the machines look, the easier it is to forget that's how we bring our products to market. They look great. They're not woodcut now. They're not kits. They're not fully open. But they are still products that come to market. We listen, we learn, we grow, we iterate. Our poor R&D, sustaining engineers and engineering team are heads down, listening, because our market has gotten to the size where there's lots to listen to and a lot of needs and wants that we're working to address. So I think with that, I've been rambly, I've been all over the place. I've told you some about me, I've told you some about MakerBot, I've told you that we were small, now we're big. Along the way, I'll tell you one more thing. Along the way, which most people know, we also got acquired by Stratus. And people are like, why did you get acquired? But why did you do that? Why did you do that? We don't get it. Well, first off, Stratus has been around for over 25 years. Scott Crump owns the patents that expired that allowed MakerBot and many of us to exist. Scott Crump is just an awesome man. He is such an interesting, intelligent, innovative person. And he's infectious. So, you know, meet Scott Crump and ask to be a part of what he's doing. It's an honor. At the same time, though, MakerBot we were at the point where our board had said, and this is what a good board does, yeah, but what are you going to do when you grow up? And he'd say, well, we're going to, no, but what are you going to do when you grow up? Write the plan down. What are you going to do? What are you going to do with the money? Why haven't you spent the money that you have? What are you going to do with it? What are you going to invest in, and where are we going to go? So we got to the point that we were going to raise the next round, and we were going to spend a lot of time on R&D and innovation so that we could get to the next platform. We really have a vision of a platform, an ecosystem, and you're just starting to see it. Our vision's much bigger. We have a lot of passion, and there's a lot more to go. We've got a lot more to grow. And we decided with the board that we would go out and raise a round, and we would spend a short amount of time doing it, because I don't know if any of you ever raised a round, but it's an exhausting process. It requires flying lots of places, getting up, standing, you know, you've got 30 minutes to tell your story and say why someone should give you money and what they should do and why they should be your next best friend. So in the process of doing that, Stratus came to us and said, hey, do you want to have a business development relationship with us? And I said, like, let's just cut to the chase. What does that mean? Does that mean you want us to partner and do something, or does that mean that you want to talk about being acquired? Well, let's talk about being acquired. So in the process of raising that round, we started talking with Stratus, and ultimately in the end, we made the decision based on a few key points. One is that we were running really fast. And we wanted to keep running fast because we know that we wanted to bring new product to market. We wanted to be a public company. And that's a lot of entrepreneurs' dreams, being a public company. And it's kind of a red herring because being a public company is a big headache, and it means that you don't get to act like an entrepreneur anymore. You have to be public. You have to answer to the public markets. You have to think in quarters. You're not allowed to think in months. You're not allowed to think in years. You're not allowed to think in 2 years. You've got to deliver quarter by quarter. So I'm not sure why everyone thinks it's the Holy Grail, but a lot of people think it's the Holy Grail. So we wanted to be public, and this was a really safe way for us to be public. We would immediately be part of a public company, and we'd be able to keep running fast. And Stratus was aligned with what we wanted to do. And that was a much, much safer, quicker way for us to keep growing and moving and be part of a public company and be a part of something big, the next big thing. And it got us to our goal quicker and faster, and that's why we moved to work with Stratus. So in the process of all this, we've also been acquired. We're part of Stratus. We're still MakerBot. We're very much MakerBot. We're never going to be MakerBot with orange and blue. That's just not going to happen, right? We're MakerBot with black and red. Black and red are who MakerBot are, and our brand is going to stay.